Let's go through the question first. Kelsey spent 1/8 of her money on a printer. She also spent 1/5 of her money on a table. In the first part of the question, they want us to find out what fraction of her total money did Kelsey spend. To work out the answer, we know that we need to add the two fractions, which is 1/8 and 1/5. So let's start with that. We know that these two fractions are unlike fractions since they have different denominators. And so in order to add these two fractions, we should make them like fractions, that is, find the common denominator. You multiply the first fraction with 5 and the second fraction with 8. By doing that, we get the respective equal fractions 5/40 and 8/40 with the common denominator. Now, since the two fractions have the common denominator 40, we could add the numerators 5 and 8, which gives us 13/40. So Kelsey spent 13/40 of her total money. In the second part, what we need to find is the fraction of the money left with Kelsey. If these 40 parts represent Kelsey's total money, then we know that she spent 13 parts of it. And thus fraction of the total money left with Kelsey is 27/40. Now let's look at a problem involving subtraction. In a science class, David measures 4/5 of a liter of a chemical and then tips out 2/3 of a liter. How much chemical David has left? To begin with, we know that David starts with 4/5 of a liter of a chemical and then tips out. That is, takes away 2/3 of a liter of the chemical. Now, as we saw in the previous problem, since the denominators are unlike, we need to find the common denominator. We multiply the first fraction with 3 and the second fraction with 5. So 4/5 times 3 gives us 12/15, and 2/3 times 5 gives us 10/15. Now, since the two fractions have a common denominator 15, we could easily subtract them. So the amount of chemical left with David is 2/15 of a liter. Let's see what we have in this problem. Grade 6 planned to raise 75 Omani Riyal for a local charity by Ramadan. If they have already raised 3/5 of the money, how much have they raised? Now what we know is that they plan to raise 75 Omani Riyal and also that they have so far collected 3/5 of that amount. Now to find 3/5 of 75, we multiply 3/5 with 75. We know that 75 is same as 75/1, and then we multiply 3 with 75 and 5 with 1. Once we multiply, we get 225/5. And dividing 225 by 5 gives us 45. So 3/5 of 75 Omani Riyal is 45 Omani Riyals. In the last one, if 2/3 of a tart is shared equally between 5 people, what fraction of the tart would each receive? To find that out, we need to divide the amount of tart with the number of people. To divide 2/3 by 5, we could use the KCF method. So we keep the first fraction as it is, change the division into multiplication, and flip the last fraction. Now we saw in the previous example how we multiply fractions. So we multiply the numerators and we multiply the denominators. And by doing that, we get 2/15. So each of the 5 people gets 2/15 of the tart.